Stop. Before you write that check, before you pick up the phone to make that payment, I need you to hear this. Because what I'm about to share could save you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars that legally you don't have to pay. 3 months ago, I met Margaret. She's 71, lives alone, and had just sent $920 to a collection agency. When I asked her why, she looked down and said, "Because I didn't want trouble. The letter looked real, and I was scared." Here's what broke my heart. Margaret didn't owe that money, not a single dollar. The law protected her completely, but nobody bothered to tell her that. And Margaret isn't alone. Every single week, I meet people who've been paying bills they never legally owed. Good people, honest people, people who just wanted to do the right thing. But companies count on something. They count on you being too tired to question them, too worried to push back, too overwhelmed to know your rights. Well, not anymore. Today, I'm walking you through 6 types of bills that countless seniors pay every month, thinking they have no choice. But the law says different, and by the time we're done here, you'll know exactly which bills you can challenge and how to protect yourself starting today. Stay with me until the end, because the 6th one, it's the most dangerous. It's designed specifically to make you pay again and again, and most people never realize they're being played. Grab something to write with if you want, or just listen. Either way, if something I say sounds familiar, drop a comment below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Now, before we dive in, do me a favor. If this information could help someone you know, a parent, a friend, a neighbor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss content like this. And smash that like button to help YouTube show this to more people who need it. Seriously, that one click could save someone from making a payment they don't legally owe. Here's a question for you. Have you ever paid a bill just because it looked official, even when something felt off? Drop a yes or no in the comments. I'm genuinely curious because I see this all the time and I want to understand how common it really is. All right, let's start with the first one. Medical bills that appear after you thought everything was covered. Picture this. You go to the hospital, you use your insurance, everything seems fine. Then 2 months later, there's a bill in your mailbox for a service you don't even remember getting. It's got your name on it, medical codes you don't understand, and an amount that makes your stomach drop. This happened to Dorothy. She went to the emergency room with chest pain last year. Her insurance was supposed to cover it, but 6 weeks later, she got a bill for $1,400 from a doctor she never met. She called me in tears. I don't understand. I never agreed to see this doctor, but what if they send me to collections? Here's what most people don't know. When you go to an emergency room or even some hospitals, you might be seen by doctors who aren't in your insurance network. They never told you. You never agreed to it. But somehow, you're expected to pay full price. There's a law called the No Surprises Act. It protects you in situations like this. If you got emergency care or if you were treated at an in-network hospital but saw an out-of-network provider without your knowledge, you often don't have to pay those surprise charges. But here's the thing, medical billing is full of mistakes. I've seen bills with duplicate charges. I've seen codes for procedures that never happened. I've seen hospitals charge for services they legally can't bill you for, and they hope you'll just pay without asking questions. So what do? First, request an itemized bill, not the summary, the full breakdown with every single charge listed. Then look for anything you don't recognize. If something looks wrong, question it. You're not being difficult. You're being smart. Ask them directly. Show me where I signed consent for this. If they can't, you've got leverage. And if you're still stuck, you can appeal. One study showed that 2/3 of people never even try to fight medical bills. But among those who do, more than half get the bill reduced or completely removed. You're not powerless here. The law gives you protection. Use it. Coming up next, we're talking about something that hits during the worst possible time, when someone you love has just passed away and suddenly you're being told you owe their debts. Imagine this. You just buried your husband. You're trying to figure out how to live without him. The grief is still raw, and then the phone rings. A voice on the other end says, "We need you to settle your late husband's credit card balance immediately, or we'll have to take further action." Your heart races. You feel guilty. You think, maybe I should just pay it. I don't want his name dragged through anything. I don't want problems. This is exactly what debt collectors are counting on. They know you're vulnerable. They know you're grieving, and they use that. But here's the law, plain and simple. Unless you co-signed on that debt, unless your name is on the account, you are not legally responsible for it. Not as a spouse, not as a child, not as anyone. A deceased person's debts belong to their estate, not to you personally. Collectors will send letters, they'll call, they'll use language that makes it sound like you have to pay, but unless you signed for it, you don't. I worked with a woman named Patricia. Her brother died, and she started getting calls about his medical debt. She never co-signed anything. They just found her because they shared a last name. They pressured her for weeks. When I got involved, we asked one simple question. Show us the document with her signature agreeing to this debt. They couldn't, because it didn't exist. The calls stopped immediately. If you're in this situation, don't admit to the debt. Don't make even a small payment to help out, because that payment can be seen as you accepting responsibility. Instead, ask for written proof that you're legally obligated. If they can't provide it, they can't collect from you. The FTC is very clear on this. Collectors cannot harass you into paying someone else's debt, and grief should never come with a bill attached. You're allowed to mourn in peace. Don't let anyone take that from you. Next, let's talk about something even more personal. When a friend or someone you know claims you owe them money, but there's no written proof. This one's tricky because it involves relationships, not just companies. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's someone from church, maybe it's even family. Here's how it usually goes. Someone approaches you months or even years later and says, "Hey, remember when I loaned you that money? When are you planning to pay me back?" And you freeze because you remember them helping you, but you don't remember it being a loan. You thought it was a gift, or maybe you're not even sure what happened because it was so long ago. This happened to someone I know. She got a message after church one Sunday. A neighbor claimed she owed $500 from back during the pandemic, said it was a loan, but my client remembered it as groceries dropped off as a kind gesture. No agreement, no written terms, no conversation about paying it back. Legally, here's what matters. If there's no written contract, no text message confirming a loan, no email, no signed paper, no bank transfer labeled loan, then it's extremely hard to enforce in court. I'm not saying ignore your conscience. If you genuinely agreed to borrow money and you remember it clearly, then yes, integrity matters. But if someone shows up out of nowhere with no documentation and just their word, they carry the burden of proof, not you. Courts don't usually enforce verbal loans unless they're clearly documented. Guilt is not a legal contract. I once helped someone who was being hounded by a former caregiver. The caregiver claimed she was owed $800 in cash from years ago. No note, no witnesses, just pressure and threats of telling people what kind of person you really are. We asked for proof. There was none. It ended right there. If this happens to you, stay calm. Don't pay out of fear or embarrassment. Simply say, "I don't remember agreeing to this as a loan. I need to see documentation before I make any decision." You're not being rude. You're protecting yourself. And that's completely okay. One boundary, set calmly, can save you hundreds of dollars and a whole lot of stress. Now let's talk about bills that show up for services you never used. You move out of your old place, you cancel your utilities, you hand over the keys, everything's done. Then 3 months later, there's a bill in the mail from the gas company or the electric company for service at an address you no longer live at. This happened to someone I worked with. She moved in with her son in Ohio. She canceled everything properly, but 2 months later, a bill showed up for $527 for gas service at her old townhouse. Service she never used, at a place she no longer had access to. Here's the truth. If you no longer lived at that address and the service wasn't under your name or control, you're not legally responsible for paying it. Sometimes the utility company doesn't close the account properly. Sometimes a new tenant moves in and just starts using the service without setting up their own account, and the company looks at the records and sees your name was the last one on file, so they bill you. But that doesn't make it your responsibility, not legally. What you need to do is ask for proof. Ask for meter readings showing you were actually using the service during the dates they're billing you for. Ask for documentation showing the account was active under your name. Ask for proof that you authorized the service during that time. If you've already moved, have someone check the property if possible. Sometimes the utilities were never turned off and someone else has been using them. And here's the critical part. Don't pay the bill just to make it go away, because the moment you pay, that can be interpreted as you admitting responsibility, and then you've made your situation worse. Consumer protection laws in most states require utility companies to verify charges before they can send you to collections. They have to prove you actually owe it. Use that to your advantage. One phone call asking the right questions can make the entire bill disappear. Next, we need to talk about old debts that have expired under the law. Imagine you're sitting at home having your morning coffee and the phone rings. It's a debt collector. They say you owe $3,200 on a credit card from over 10 years ago. Maybe you remember the card, maybe you don't, but they're threatening you. They're saying if you don't pay, they'll escalate. Your hands shake. You feel scared. You think, maybe I should just pay something to make this go away. Stop. Because here's what they're not telling you. In most states, there's something called a statute of limitations on debt. For credit cards and medical bills, it's usually between 3 and 6 years. After that time passes, the debt is legally uncollectible. They can't sue you for it. These are called time-barred debts. Collectors can still call you, they can still send letters, but they cannot take you to court and force you to pay. The trap is this. If you make even a small payment, if you admit the debt is yours, you can restart that legal clock. Suddenly, a debt that was dead becomes alive again, and now they can sue you. I helped someone who was getting threatening calls about a debt from 2006. The collector kept saying things like, "This is going to ruin your credit," and "We're monitoring your accounts." It sounded terrifying. But when we asked them to verify the debt under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they backed off immediately because they knew they couldn't actually enforce it. If this happens to you, don't confirm anything over the phone. Ask for a written validation letter. They must prove the debt is legally enforceable and within the statute of limitations for your state. One pause before answering their questions can protect everything you've worked for. And now, here's the most dangerous one. Fake bills designed to look completely real. Last winter, someone I know opened her mail and found an official-looking notice. Final notice, it said. She owed $389 for a home security system. There was a customer ID number, a phone number to call. Her address was on it. Everything looked legitimate. But here's the thing. She never signed up for any home security system, ever. This is how scammers operate now. They don't look like scammers anymore. Their letters look professional. Their websites look real. Their customer service voices sound calm and official, and they target seniors specifically because they know older adults value doing the right thing and avoiding conflict. The real danger isn't just losing money, it's the doubt they plant in your mind. That voice that says, what if I'm wrong? What if I did sign up and forgot? What if I'm being irresponsible? Let me be absolutely clear. If you didn't sign up for a service, you don't owe anything, period. Scammers use bits of public information to make their bills look convincing. They might have your address, your name, even your phone number, but that doesn't mean the bill is real. And here's the key. If you pay once, they'll keep coming back because now they know you're an easy target. So what do you look for? Legitimate companies don't demand payment via gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. They don't threaten legal action without proper documentation. They don't pressure you to pay immediately without giving you time to verify. If something feels off, trust that feeling. Ask for their business license number. Ask for the full company name and look them up online. If you find nothing or if you find complaints, you've just saved yourself from a scam. The FTC reports that seniors lose over $3 billion every year to fraud. A huge portion of that is fake billing scams. But you don't have to be part of that statistic. You have the right to pause, to verify, to say, I need to check this before I pay. You're still in control. Let's bring this all together. Today we covered surprise medical charges you can fight, debts from deceased loved ones that aren't your responsibility, informal loans with no documentation, utility bills for services you didn't use, old debts that have expired, and flat-out scam bills designed to steal from you. All of this comes down to one thing. You have more power than you think. You have rights. You have protections under the law, and you have every right to ask questions, demand proof, and refuse to pay when something doesn't add up. I know the world feels different now than when you were younger. Bills are confusing. Companies hide behind automated systems. Everything's in fine print, but that doesn't mean you're helpless. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to say, I need time to think about this. It's okay to ask someone you trust for help. You worked too hard for too long to let someone take your money through fear or confusion. If this video helped you, please share it. Send it to your mom, your neighbor, your friend at church, your sister, because someone you know is probably dealing with this right now and they need to hear it. And here's my question for you. What bill are you going to take a second look at this week? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and your story might help someone else realize they're not alone. Remember, you're not just protecting money, you're protecting your peace, your dignity, your right to live without fear. And that's worth fighting for.